All right. Welcome back to Middleman Politics. Tonight it's going to be Mari and myself. It's been a while since we've been live and had a chat about the state of our union. I can tell you right now that if you compare what I was talking about on June 11th, which was the last time we actually did a broadcast, pretty much a lot of the stuff that was in that broadcast came true. So today is going to be a little bit of a topic about the coronavirus situation, also the politics about this, and that is what happened this week with the stimulus bill that was supposed to be here in time to help everybody, not just the unemployed, but people in the front line, schools, state buildings, state budgets, money for PPE and better testing, and of course the unemployment insurance. And then there was a stimulus package, or another check. So the deal never happened. Actually, the Senate last night was instructed to go home by Mitch McConnell. So last night, if you watch Fox News, you heard a different story than if you watch CNN. Fox News reported that the White House offered an extension to the unemployment, and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer rejected the offer. Now, CNN also reported that the Republicans offered an extension to unemployment insurance, and the Democrats rejected it. So both CNN and Fox News reported it accurate. But what you don't understand about this, guys, is the politics and the policies and the process that goes into these bills that Congress and Senate writes. So let's go through this real quick. If they would have struck a deal last night, they would have had to vote on it in the Senate and the Congress. Now, this meeting between Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi went on into the night for a long time. No deal was made. Let's play hypothetical. If the deal would have been made, okay, it would have then had to been voted upon in the Senate. Well, guess what? Mitch McConnell sent the Republicans home for the weekend. They're having a long weekend. You hear that, folks? The Senate, Democrats and Republicans, are having a long weekend. So Mitch McConnell sent the Republicans home Thursday evening. So basically, we couldn't have gotten a vote on the floor and probably until Tuesday, maybe Monday, but more than likely it would have been Tuesday for the vote. And then it has to go back to Congress, and that has to pass. And hopefully that's by Thursday. And then hopefully by Friday morning, the president signs in that extension, right? Next Friday. Folks, the extension was only for 1 week. By the time that this would have been signed into law and was implied to the state systems, it might have been 2 or 3 weeks before you get the extension money anyway. So don't let the news headlines fool you about Democrats and Republicans don't care. Well, I mean, that's a whole other story, but don't let it fool you to think that the Democrats turned away an extension for unemployment insurance, when in fact it was only for a week. And there's no magic button that these states can just push and everybody gets paid that PUA again for that week. There's a process. Last week it was reported that July 24th was the cutoff for an extension on the unemployment benefits and the evictions, or mainly for the unemployment benefits. And if they weren't turned in the new deal by that Friday, that it would be impossible for people to not have a gap in payment. So, here we are. Now, on Fox News today, they were talking about how this deal the Republicans offered, they were so generous. And then there were two commentators on this channel that surprised me. One was Tegan. She's usually a pretty hardcore Trump supporter, but she backed the Democratic commentary person they had on. And she said, the Democrats passed a bill in May. Where were the Republicans? Why weren't they negotiating this in May, June, July? Why did they wait until the 23rd hour and then threw out this insulting extension, in the Democratic minds anyway, this insulting 1 week? By the way, Senate's already been sent home for the weekend, but here's my offer. It's an insult. And the person that's playing politics with this is the president and the Republicans. So it's frustrating to me, not just for the unemployment benefits for folks out there who need it, but this bill that the Democrats had passed back in May was worth $3 trillion. The Republicans said that's too much. Well, why couldn't we start negotiating on this back when it was passed? I mean, when I reported back on June 11th, I had called out the four: Texas, California, Arizona, Florida, and I said watch out for Georgia. That was June 11th. Cases were between 600 and 1,200. Here we are at Worldometers. Today we finished with 70,000 new cases in the United States. 282,000 new cases globally. We will be, according to Worldometers, now I don't know if they get the raw data from the hospitals before the CDC does. I don't know how they get their numbers, but they are a little bit higher in deaths and cases than the Johns Hopkins website. Nonetheless, Johns Hopkins always catches up within 12 to 24 hours with those counts. So, here we are at 17,754,000. Tomorrow, it's almost for certain that we will be at 18 million cases globally. And we just got to 17 million on Wednesday, folks. It took 4 days to get 1 million cases worldwide. Anyway, let's take a look at the numbers inside the United States. By the way, the critically ill still near 19,000, which is way higher than what I reported the last time we did a show. There's a point for me to show these numbers, guys. I'm not going to bore you with the stats all night. I have a point to all this madness here. California came in at 7,878 cases today, new. They are starting to see a downward turn in California. Their death toll remains high, and 191 today were reported. This is a good sign because California, technically this is their second surge, and to see the numbers starting to level off between 7,000 and 9,000 for over 2 weeks, we were looking at 10,000 to 15,000 cases. Florida also starting to plateau at 9,000. For several weeks, we were between 10,000 and 12,000 average. We peaked at 15,000 in Florida. But the death record continues to fall in Florida. Today, breaking another daily high, 256 people lost their lives in Florida. And then Texas, 9,750 cases, slightly down from where they usually are, which is about 10,000. But also starting to see a downward tick in Texas. Now, we peaked probably 4 or 5 days ago in these 3 states that I just mentioned. Arizona, by the way, back up to 3,200 cases. That's what they were kind of peaking around 3,000 and 4,000 cases. They went down to about 1,800. Now they're back up to 3,200 daily. So they're kind of going up and down with cases in Arizona. Death is still lagging there, 68. That is down. They have seen totals in the 100s. Point I'm trying to make here, guys, is the Republicans said they wanted to put a pause on all relief bills back in May because they want to see if the CARES Act was doing enough and if it was going to work. Did it work? Yes and no. The stock market, I'll start there. Why do you think that we had the success that we've had in the stock market right now? I mean, even after a really shaky week, we didn't gain or lose. We almost finished right at zero this week. We gained at the beginning, we lost in the middle, we gained at the end. But we're sitting at 26,428. And before that, now, ironically, the last time we did a live show, we were right around the same numbers here. We were in the low 26,000. So since the last month and a half, we haven't moved anywhere in the market. The market's been flat, basically. It's 300 points higher than what it was when I reported in June 11th. Now, the CARES Act. Did it work? Yes and no. The $600 PUA is what's held up this economy. It's what people were spending their money. Maybe people are spending more money because of the insurance, the unemployment, okay? For some of those people who aren't working because their job isn't back yet. So what are they doing? Maybe they're fixing up their house. Maybe they're building a tree house for their kids. I'm telling you, Americans were spending that money on household goods, home improvement projects, clothing, you name it. Maybe even some new merchandise for inside the house. So there's some kind of tax revenue going into the states when you're making purchases. And that was thanks to consumer confidence, knowing that they had at least 30 to 40 million people who knew they were getting $600 a week plus their state unemployment. So what do you think is going to happen in the next week or two when people don't have that extra money? Now everybody is going to be holding on tight to every penny they get. Because I'll tell you something, if you're following this next relief bill and you're expecting it to help you pay your bills in August, there are politicians right now going on the record and saying, do not trust us. In other words, hold on to your money until this next bill is approved. But back to the cases. The death is up. This is the 3rd straight day of 1,400 people died. All week long since Tuesday, it's been over, it was 1,200, 1,300 on Tuesday. The rest of the week was in the 1,400s. We see a lag on Sunday and Monday. Last week, Sunday, we had around 480 deaths. Monday was about 550, give or take. And then Tuesday through Saturday, we're seeing 1,000 plus deaths a day. This is week 4. I also said back then, 2 to 4 weeks, we will start to see the death toll rising. And here we are at week 4. And we're heading back to mid to late March to early April numbers of death. Mari.
Yes, Jake.
You watched the testimony this morning from Dr. Fauci, Dr. Redford, and Admiral Dwar. And you got to witness Republican Congressman Jim Jordan asked Dr. Fauci if he thought that the government should limit protest. And I just want your opinion. Do you think it's disrespectful to Fauci and the other doctors to have to sit through this testimony, to listen to political grandstanding, and not answering real questions about the crisis itself?
Hello, my name is Mari, and I voted for Trump. Don't be mad at me when I say the conservatives are sort of out of line here, and when he did that, I was sort of shocked. It was like a cheap political shock to inject rhetoric into a question and answer system or session. I'm getting a lot of feedback, by the way. I might have to take this off.
I don't hear it.
Anyway, it was disrespectful because Fauci repeated himself over and over and over
Yes.
again he doesn't create laws. He doesn't do constitutional decisions. He simply said, as a doctor, I don't recommend gathering during a pandemic, and we have 5 rules, essentially, and he just stood very firm to the social distancing, the mask wearing, staying apart, that kind of stuff. He kept on, it was like he was being pressed to try to justify laws and justify actions such as putting our military in positions to sort of, and I wasn't there, and you can't really go by anything other than what you're seeing on social media and the news, but when you look at everything from above, it appears like everyone's overreacting.
Well,
it's so multifaceted and complex of a societal issue. It's not as simple as asking Fauci the same question over and over again. Is this right or right? Is this wrong? Fauci's giving his medical opinion, in which he did actually follow up afterwards that outdoor gatherings are less risk than indoor gatherings, but he didn't really say protesting versus eating outside versus any of that. He just said, if you don't want to get coronavirus and you don't want to spread it to people, stay away from the crowds, wear a mask.
well,
Wash your hands.
and Jim Jordan just wanted to put Fauci in a corner about, it's not recommended that crowds gather. And Jordan wanted him to say that the government should stop the protests. Could you imagine the war that would start on social media? And Jim Jordan tried really, really, really hard to get Fauci to say that, but all Fauci kept saying was any crowds or any gatherings are not encouraged at this moment. You need to socially distance and wear a mask. He did state that being outside with a mask is better than being indoors with a mask. And to me, Fauci had to verify that, because Jim Jordan was like, well, you can go outside and protest, but if you go to church, you get arrested.
And I get that. And I get people being frustrated.
But being inside a church is different than being outside.
That's it. And I mean, it's a tough situation to deal with. We have all these variables. And I feel like what it needs to come down to is everyone needs to embrace this tough time and say, well, we're up Schitt's Creek. Everyone's at risk. What are we going to do so everyone can feel safe again? How would you feel safe? Well, I'll tell you, I've been battling my own demons with this virus and fears and stuff, with Jake being diabetic and having kids in school and all that. It's been an emotional ride, and I'll say I'm less fearful now than I was, mainly because we were able to watch this virus travel from China over to New York since December. We've been sort of watching this unfold. Actually, November, I think we started talking about it, just not online, but we started observing weird things in China. But I lost what I was going to say.
I tell you, in the beginning of this, I feel like I had a solid foundation, and things were kind of like you needed a break from it. And now it's the other way around.
It gets overwhelming and it comes in and goes. Now I'm at the point where I think it's reasonable just to say, let's all just get our masks on, reduce the spread so we can have more freedoms. And everyone, I'm sort of confused by the mask informants being against freedoms, because if you go to the grocery store, you have to wear shoes. If you go to the grocery store, you have to wear a shirt.
When you drive your car, you got to put your seatbelt on.
I mean, there's certain things you have to comply to. And I don't think it's a big deal. And I think people who do have a tough time wearing the mask in the workplace should have certain accommodations, because I'll tell you, from wearing a mask myself and doing physical labor, you get the oxygen in your, all the doctors have debunked that. It's just you have that hot, claustrophobic feeling that people aren't, you're not used to wearing a mask, and it's like you get hot, you start sweating in it, and it's hot, it's uncomfortable. I get it. Like, I get both sides. But when I think about, do I feel this area is safe to send my kids to school with all the unknowns? I think my biggest fear is it's a disease. It's not just the flu where it's going to go away and you're not going to have long-term ailments. There's not enough data on the table for me to just go in blindly and accept that the kids can go in school. And I'm a conservative. I feel pretty lonely on the conservative things, because that's sort of a liberal view. Like, they're all sheltering everyone and wanting everyone to stay in. But as a conservative, I want to feel safe and have my freedoms, and I feel like it's best going to happen if we can focus on rapid testing for all communities and keeping that infection rate low. If we have an infection rate, like I believe in this area, we're hanging around, 1.5%, 2%?
Yeah.
I feel I'm aware when I go outside and in public. I'm careful and I'm cautious, but I don't feel like doom and gloom, apocalypse, like I did when this all started. I feel like the emotional part of it, for me at least, has gone into a more rational, mindset.
Well, spread is down. The numbers are down. So there is a sense of comfort here in upstate New York. When you're looking at 1% to 2%, you're doing okay. So, you eat a little bit more of takeout. You take your mask off when you're walking in the parking lots. I've caught myself doing it a couple times. But, Fauci lying about masks in the early days. Okay, sure. So Richard brings up, why don't you mention about Dr. Fauci mentioning not wearing masks in the early days of this? And I'll tell you why. I'm glad, because nobody else talks about this. In the beginning, when we found out that America was starting to see cases pop up, we were in extreme shortage of N95 masks. And at the time, they really didn't know how to preserve that PPE equipment stockpile. So, unfortunately, there might have been some misinfo in the beginning, but it was in the nature of saving the mask for the medical experts. In other words, they were what do you say?
They flat out lied to people and said that masks aren't useful. Huge mistake. Pisses me off. And it took me back personally, because I have a lot of family who works in healthcare down in Long Island. I have two cousins, and my one cousin's their whole family's first responders in the fire department, and my other cousin is an ER nurse. So she saw these cases coming in full blast when New York was peaking, and my fears were just like, dear God, like I don't even want to buy these masks because if I buy them, I'm just going to give them to a nurse because I don't feel right when they're going into work every day trying to help these people, and these nurses are the only people that they can interact with, sometimes until their death. It's very emotional, and you have to think about both sides. So it pisses me off that happened. But it shows you the power of how they can manipulate views and opinions of people for a certain reason. I mean, I get the supply chain issues even now. Like even with Defense Act, like things with masks, still not enough. You know, we're doing construction work, dealing with old insulation, old concrete, old drywall, and we need good masks, good N95 masks. And man, just working at the house, I've gone through a lot, and I can't replace them because when I bought them, they were like 50 cents a piece, and now they're like, God, you're lucky if you can find them for like $5.
Richard says we would have been better off if they admitted the supply was inadequate and then started a national make your own mask drive.
Exactly.
Well,
then you would
hold on.
The trust of the people.
No, you had people fighting over toilet paper. There was no trusting the American public at the time. When they were looking at the crucial supply chain being dwindled down, they were worried they weren't going to have the mask. Because remember when this first started, people in Ohio, my family was telling Jake, there's no food on the shelves. Everybody's buying everything up. Toilet paper, there were fights about toilet paper. So it wasn't that, yes, Richard and Mari, we would have been better off if we just would have said, look, our supply is hugely inadequate. But
it still would have thrown.
Look at how many people
would go and buy the masks anyway.
Exactly, and look, if anything, they would have panicked and bought them.
It would have made issues worse.
Exactly, and I think that there was a lot of people out there who over prepped for this, who bought way too much of everything.
Oh, the toilet paper thing was
toilet paper,
ridiculous.
Lysol, disinfectant wipes. I mean, you name it, it's all gone. You can't get it because everybody bought it all up because in the beginning, we just thought we were going to be shut down for a long, long time, which we should have been. We should have been shut down for 6 to 10 weeks, properly.
Well, I just think if everyone took it seriously, we'd been a lot better position right now. But even still, no matter what political side you're on, you have to recognize this is a very complex issue, and that the solutions, they don't come easy and they take time to implement. And when you listen to like the hearing today, they were like, why don't we have more testing? What the hell's going on? What's taking so long? And then the other side's like, well, we've done this and we're up to, what was it, 800,000?
Yeah.
Almost 1 million tests a day that they've worked up to. Think about it. Our government wasn't prepared to do these tests, and now we're up to 1 million a day. Logistically, you're dealing with all kinds of outsourced labs, different types of material. Each testing machine has its own processing material and equipment that it needs. So supply chain issues, logistics, it was like there was a lot of mistakes, and there's a lot of opportunity to learn going into this for the next generation, hopefully. But it just, either side, answers don't come easy, solutions don't come easy, and it's hard to find. It's like a really bad balancing act, and you have the media angry at each other. You got Fox News venom, you got CNN venom, and then you got the American people in the middle, some staring like deer in headlights, not knowing what's going on, some joining the venomous mainstream media, and then you got, I think, what I call the silent majority is those people just sort of sitting back trying to figure out what the hell's going on. Because seriously, we're sort of, in turbulent times. And which issue? We're talking only of one issue right now with the coronavirus. We're not talking about, look at the hurricanes coming in and look at all the challenges we deal just normally with cyclical weather activity, and then having to deal with that in the middle of a pandemic. Social distancing, people in shelters. Ugh.
So now that we've opened back up, and I feel like that some are pretending that we're not having problems. Last weekend, July 24th, started the beginning of the new baseball season. And here we are exactly 7 days from the start of the new season. Baseball commissioner warns he might end season if coronavirus isn't managed better. Over 19 players for the Miami Marlins have tested positive. On Friday, the league and the Major League Baseball Players Association announced that 29 players and team staff have tested positive this week. No comment from the Major League Baseball office. Game in Milwaukee postponed against the St. Louis Cardinals. The Marlins and Phillies also had more positive tests today. 3 from the Phillies and 18 players and 3 coaches from the Marlins, and I think 2 from the Phillies. Phillies Blue Jays game this weekend is also canceled. Infected Marlins are headed to Florida for more screening. 7 days in. And there's 3 series canceled this weekend.
May I ask why these people who pay these athletes to play these games, why aren't they concerned about the long-term effects of this disease?
So
it may be, coined a virus, but it is in fact a disease, and it's been called a vascular disease.
I'll tell you why. And you remember this because this was right after Trump announced the 30-day extension of staying closed. 4 days later, he had a meeting with the top executives from Major League Baseball, NASCAR, NFL, NBA, all in his ear. We got to get back open. We're losing billions of dollars. There's so much money. I don't know what's going to happen. The leagues might fold. I mean, President Trump was panicked.
It's a crappy situation.
And to come back. So they got the support from the president. The president agreed. So those people don't know any better, is what I'm saying. They don't follow the science enough. All they're looking at is dollars lost. When you're as rich as some of these team owners are, someone telling you, hey, you're going to lose $1 billion this year, that's not cool.
I was very disappointed in hearing that they went out and partied somewhere, and that's how that whole team.
The Miami Marlins.
Yeah.
Yep. I think, honestly, you disqualify the Miami Marlins.
It's like they didn't take anything seriously.
There's 21 players and staff infected on that team alone.
It's just a bit
disqualify them.
Yeah. Not happy with
That's it. But,
But you got basketball with the bubble.
And that's working so far. We haven't had a new case of coronavirus in 10 days in the NBA bubble.
They got the bubble going, so,
Now, the NFL opened up training camp this week, and there has been a handful of players who are opting out of the 2020 season. Big-name players. Dante Hightower from the New England Patriots is one. Several other NFL players, young NFL players who had families over the summer. Maybe they had their firstborn. They don't want to bring it home to their family. I don't blame them. So you got NFL players opting out. Baseball players have already opted out. Now we're considering canceling the season. And I just don't see how the NFL is going to successfully start their football season. That's the most contact in any sport is football. Basketball, too. I'll be shocked if we can get through it. But this bubble thing might be the great idea. Everybody stays in this bubble. They live in hotels. They don't leave. They're tested every day. The temperatures are taken. Multiple tests all week long. You don't leave the bubble. You stay in the bubble. You finish out the season.
How many weeks is that?
I'm not sure. I think it's 3 months altogether.
That's got to be tough.
The tournament, the playoffs, and then the championship
You
game.
know, it's working. So I
Well,
guess it's
last
better
night
than
was
no
the first night
basketball.
for it, so we'll see.
We'll give it a couple weeks.
Yeah, let's give. Well, I mean, a couple days. Look at baseball. We got, 2 days in, we heard people tested positive. Mike Moustakas of the Cincinnati Reds was back in the lineup this week. He missed a couple of days. Here's my problem with this too, Mari. You know how big of a fan I am of Mike Moustakas. He wasn't feeling well on Sunday, and they made him stay home in caution. And then by Tuesday, he was back on the field playing. What if he's asymptomatic? Now, his test came back negative.
And with all the bad tests that have been going on, false positives, false negatives,
Yeah.
all that.
They make you test twice if you test positive. If you test negative, they move on.
But there's false negatives
Yeah.
as well. So, you know, when you're looking at any of these stats, you have to understand there's going to be variables that could throw the statistics way off. And
But-
that's where a lot of the debate is, I know in our community, whether or not how deadly it is and all that. There's-
Should Mike Moustakas had taken at least a 7-day quarantine before, just to make sure? I mean, if you don't feel well enough to where you're telling your team doctor, hey, I'm not feeling so hot today, to me, I would be concerned that he's asymptomatic. And I would continue to test Moustakas for the rest of the week, just on the caution side
But
of
who
things.
knows how long the testing is? I think, you know, as much as I've appreciated what Trump has done for the economy over
Yep.
the past 3 years,
Taxes and
all
trade.
that.
Yep.
I just think we're shooting ourselves in the foot by not doing enough testing. Him saying we should do less testing is missing the point that people like me with kids and at-risk people at home are going to invest in the economy and get out more and feel safe if there's rapid testing and faster contact tracing to keep the infection rate low. My biggest fear is an outbreak, community spread, and then our healthcare system collapses. People like me who live in a small community that only has like a handful of ventilators and ICU beds.
Yep.
It's a small town, but there's 36,000 people, and when you're staring at 15 ICU beds, that's not a lot, and it's certainly not enough for an outbreak.
You know, you started to say about how before the coronavirus, Trump did good on trade, Trump did good on the economy. There were some policies that he made with foreign policies. Some of the stuff was good. Not everybody agreed with it.
And I watched
but-
the impeachment sessions, like, just disgusted with
Right.
the liberals.
But my point is that us being Republican supporters, and we are not voting for Biden, but it's really hard to say, yeah, we're voting for Trump again after what we've seen. And this leads me to my next point. It's being reported that Mitch McConnell is signaling to Republican Senate candidates to distance themselves from Trump if necessary. The reason why that McConnell, this is desperation, folks. The reason why McConnell is so desperate to keep their Senate seats, they only have a 3-seat advantage right now. There are 6 seats in the Senate that are considered the Democratic campaign or candidate is very strong and has a good chance of beating out these 6 senators, which would give the Democrats the Senate and Congress. And if Biden wins, you're talking about a Democratic-controlled Senate, House, and White House.
That terrifies me.
Absolutely.
Because then you have very little you have very little people to debate with when it comes to signing off on things ludicrous like the new Green Deal.
Well,
That's what terrifies me.
what terrifies me about it is that I think when someone or a certain party gets too much control, it goes to their head, and the power, folks can't handle that much control. So right now we have a Congress that's Democratic and a Senate that's Republican controlled, and we're facing a horrible situation right now with this delay of this relief bill because they don't get along, they're not seeing eye to eye.
What's worse?
But what happens? Well, that's what I'm saying. What happens if it's all Democratic? Well, just because we're conservatives, that's not fair for us to say it's going to be horrible. Just because they go against our values and ideas. What would it be like if it was a completely controlled Republican? Think about if Donald Trump had this House, the Senate, and the White House. Do you think this country would be better off if Donald Trump got the green light on everything he wanted to do? Everything?
Well, it would be interesting to see what would happen because, I'm conservative and I see how the 600 UI is putting dollars into at least this area because we're in an area that's heavily hit due to the tourism industry. We are Lake George. All the restaurants and bars are suffering, and I would hate to be in their position, and I sympathize with the loss, and they must be grieving. I can't even imagine to build your life around this dream and have it be successful, and then have something like this virus take it away from you. Like, how shocking that is.
So why do you think Mitch is signaling people to distance from Trump? And I'll tell you, you only get one answer here. Why do you think that Senate Republicans feel they have to distance themselves?
I think Trump is losing his popularity with his own conservatives.
But what's the number one reason why?
Well, he doesn't want to lose his seats.
Well, what's the number one reason why
You're only going to give
Trump?
me one chance. Just say it, Jay. Don't play games with me.
The reason why is that Republicans do not share the same views on this disease that President Trump does. And they realize that there are a lot of Republicans who are for wearing masks. There are a lot of Republican voters out there who care about their children's safety. There are a lot of Republican voters out there who take this disease very seriously, and their president doesn't. So when you go to the voting voting booth this year, and you've got Senate Republicans who are endorsed by Trump, some people might look at the Democratic senator and say, you know what, Trump's endorsing that. Trump doesn't believe in the coronavirus effort. He plays it down. He thinks it's not that big of a deal. He's told everyone that kids are immune to this.
Wow.
So that's disconnect
That's
big
one
time.
problem. Then you talk about this ballot, mail-in voting. We're already setting up for a catastrophe right now. Brace yourself, because this election could. I really think that, and I've been saying this to Jake for almost a year at least, that I really truly feel like Trump wants to be a dictator, and he's masterminded a way to do it. And I feel like now, as each day gets closer, he's coming closer to being that. What would you call it?
I don't think that's going to happen here in the United States. When you had the big dog Senate Republicans reject the idea of delaying the election, that's a pretty good indication that his party is not going to stand behind that kind of behavior. So, yes, he probably would love it if he could be president for the next 20 years. I'm not doubting that.
Now,
but
honestly, we need
I
an
don't.
age limit.
I don't think the party would even allow it. I think the party would participate in having him exit. Zaganda 26. Long-term effects of COVID is not to be underestimated. We aren't told the whole story about this virus. It's not just about fatality rate. It's the long-term effects on our health. That's absolutely 100% correct. Mari, if you get a mild case, they're saying now, if you get a mild case of coronavirus, that you're immune to the virus is not as long and you're more likely to get sicker the next time you get it. People who do go to the hospital and have ventilation done on them suffer long-term health effects with their lungs, their breathing. They may need oxygen for a long period of time afterwards.
Do you think I don't think it's been long enough to be set in stone to even judge exactly what the reality of that is. I think
No.
it has to be seen in hindsight to know for sure, and it's not, we don't have enough data.
So when you go to the election polls this year, election booth, and you want to vote for a president, do you care about public health or do you care about a strong economy?
You know,
Because that's what it really comes down to. If Trump took the public health part serious, he wouldn't retweet videos of doctors who believe in demon sex, astral sex,
I wish
stories about people getting pregnant right before your eyes, expanding their bellies.
Filter. I really do, Jay.
I mean, that's what Trump's retweeting support, because she says that masks aren't needed and
I
hydroxychloroquine
just don't like his
is the cure.
troll-like behavior. I just think the trolling creates.
Can you
more
put up with 4 more
animosity.
years of that?
I like certain ideologies that he stands for, and this whole thing has turned me off. Like, I used to think his tweets were sort of like, haha, look, he's, busting this person's balls. But now I'm just like, I'm so sick of this. I just want someone to really, truly lead the country without any sass and back conspiracy or, speculation. Just facts, data, and good old-fashioned politics. I'm not sure that I know a person capable of that. So both parties, in my personal opinion, are doomed. We don't have good choices, and I will back that up also with there really truly needs to be an age limit on presidents. I think both choices right now I think both of them show signs of dementia and cognitive problems that it's sort of dangerous to have someone losing their brain. There is a certain age where you start losing your marbles. It happens to everyone. No one's immune to it. So I don't want to be offensive to older people, but at the same time, he's proud of himself for this test. Why did he take that test? I'm going off topic. Sorry, Jake.
It's all right. Lots of good points. So if Trump loses, you have to pray and hope for, if you're a Republican anyway, if Trump loses, you have to pray that the Senate holds on to its control, the Republican Senate.
We seriously have to pray, because I'm worried that the balance would be completely, thrown off.
I'm not-
spin out of control.
I'm not worried. And I'll tell you,
worried.
no, if it's an all-Democratic House, Congress, and Senate, I'll tell you why.
Oh my God.
This coronavirus is not going away at least for another year and a half. Our economy contracted by 33% in the second quarter. Hold on, let me finish. When we dropped 8% from the 2008 recession, it took about 9 years to start seeing consumer confidence thrive again in our economy. So if it took 9 years on 8%, doing the math, we're talking about 20 to 35 years it's going to take for this economy to come back. And it may not be that long, but the first 4 to 8 years, guys, think about it. We're going to be seeing taxes go up no matter who the president is. After all of these bills that we've passed, trillions of dollars, we're up to $27 trillion in debt, national debt. But I don't think that the Green New Deal and all of these other policies that could really wreck the economy will happen, because there's going to be too much focus, whether it's Trump or Biden, there's going to be too much focus on rebuilding the healthcare system, on rebuilding the infrastructure, on rebuilding the economy, and I'm talking about structured rebuild of the economy. Mari, just like in new cases, there's a lag in the death. When you have the second quarter numbers come in like that, there's a lag. We're getting ready to go through that. Unemployment, jobs are going to start dropping off again here in the next 2 to 4 weeks. It's coming.
And
So in my opinion, I think that the next 2 to 4 years, whoever is president is going to have to focus on getting things turned around. We're not realistic. Look, this talk about a vaccine by the end of the year and beginning of the year, that would be great. That's probably not going to happen, guys.
you know how I feel about that.
Yeah. That's probably not going to happen. In fact, we're in phase 3. It used to take 4 years to get to a phase 3 in a vaccine trial. And we're in it already. And look, Fauci testified today and said that they didn't cut corners, they didn't cut efficacy. It was red tape that they got rid of that got them into the phase 3 clinical trials.
I don't trust this virus. I mean, the vaccine. This rapid testing that they're doing on people. Let's take chickenpox vaccine, for example. I've never had chickenpox, and I've never gotten the chickenpox vaccine, so I suspect I have a pretty low chance of getting shingles. Okay? So
it's a dormant disease.
Here's my thing. Say this vaccine works and shows some ability to starve off this virus because it ups your immunity. From what I've read, it's possible it'll give you immunity only for a few months. And then what? Is that going to subject you to the disease? That's the unknowns. And that is something they can't just blink their eyes and figure out overnight. This is the part that I disagree with this whole vaccine BS, because you can't put out a vaccine that quickly.
They did say
safely.
That this was going to be a multi-dose vaccine twice a year. So if you convince the majority, 75% of the population, to take this vaccine,
and they get sicker
twice
every time they take it.
Well, wait,
no.
I'm saying if you do it, let's say they don't get sick at all right? And you get the 75% to take 2 doses over 6 to 8 months. That should be enough time to snuff out the virus to where there's no more spread because no one's getting it.
Listen.
So you're talking 8 months to a year after the 8 months to a year after the virus vaccine is out. That's how you get rid of virus spread.
They're not going to jab people. I mean, people aren't going to be lining up for it like that.
I don't know.
Think in mass. Maybe on MSN, they'll get a line and zoom in so it looks endless or something. But I can't see, people just being like, yeah, give me that. Inject me with some of that dead coronavirus.
You don't know until you...
That's a big no thank you on the WTF Sky tip.
Again, if it's not proven, they won't release it. If it's
Quicker.
not safe, they won't release it. They're not going to cut corners. I can tell you this right now. As much as Trump hopes and prays they will, they're not. And if the data does not come back satisfactory, Tony Fauci is going to cockblock this virus or this vaccine from coming out. Bottom line.
If what?
If it's not safe.
I don't know about that. As much as I think Fauci's good, there's good and bad with him. I still am suspicious. I do hold a suspicion. Listen, because Jake's looking at me cross-eyed, everyone. Because he has insider information. Don't tell me he's not invested in remdesivir and other vaccine companies and that. To me, there's always somebody, the human ego, if you don't have it, grounded, you're gonna do things for your own benefit and not the greater good. Maybe I don't know. I just think your own personal bias affects your actions greatly. And if you're not aware of it, you don't understand how you're affecting the outside. This is the same reason why I don't like Mnuchin. Like, he drives me, he irks me.
51
He's
years
a little too cocky.
of being the top
Riches.
infectious disease scientist, 79 years old. He has nothing left to prove. Dr. Fauci is a national treasure. 79 years old, 51 years doing this, serving 6 different presidents. I don't see at this part of his career why he would do something that would only personally gain him after having such a historic career and respected career. I understand it's hard to discern information anymore because you have so many people talking about Dr. Fauci is a liar, Dr. Fauci is a snake, he knew about a pandemic that was going to happen. And, you know, as a scientist who develops vaccines for a living, there is a pattern to these pandemics. And he was only speaking hypothetically. More than likely, this administration will see a pandemic, just like the Obama and Clinton and Bushes. They've all seen pandemics. Now, the most serious one, in my opinion, before this was the H1N1. And that happened on Obama's watch. And I don't think it's fair to blame Trump, just like it's not fair to blame Obama. It's not their fault. I mean, when you have a novel virus, it's unknown. Nobody knows how to do it. Nobody knows how to react. So it's unfair to blame president's actions. But when the president doesn't act, that's when you start throwing the blame around. And I think part of the problem here with the Fauci situation is that he has done so much over time. And look, if Fauci was in his 40s and 50s, I might jump in that pool with you. But the simple fact is that so many times that's what Donald Trump has been doing. He's been trying to minimize Tony's amazing career. He's been awarded so many times. He's well documented as one of the greatest of all time. To me, I think a lot of the reason why people even speculate is because of the disinformation that we hear from Trump, and then he likes to stir these conspiracy theories up, and the Q stuff, he loves that. He loves everything that's conspiracy related. I mean, he would take information from a doctor who is kind of on the weird side over Tony Fauci of 51 years of developing successful vaccines for other viruses and diseases. And yet he thought that this person was impressive, the woman who claimed that there was a baby born right in front of her from a woman who walked in without a pregnant belly, and then it had a pregnant belly, and then the baby came out just like that. That's what this doctor said that she witnessed with her own eyes. That vaccines are made out of alien DNA, and that astral sex is actually sex from demons and witches that come into your subconscious.
Here's the thing.
That's what Trump's going to get behind over Tony Fauci? Over Tony Fauci.
Hold on here. And this is where I think the age thing is a problem. He is not good with technology. I don't think he grasps the social engineering that a platform that Twitter does. Like, he doesn't really understand Twitter etiquette either. Like,
more reason to stay off.
But I mean, and then also other people don't understand Twitter etiquette either, because I've seen liberal outlets go nuts about his retweets, and yeah, he probably shouldn't retweet like some of these things, but at the same time, he's retweeting it. It's not making it a statement from him. And it's like a really fine gray area where it's to the point where I wish he would just have a press, like some kind of media manager to just deal with it and not have these knee-jerk. I mean, I respect his freedom of speech and all, but he sometimes makes himself look like a total Riri. And especially more so now than, say, 2 years ago. It's really sort of overwhelming for me as a concern. Well, I think it's way worse now. For some reason, I don't know. Like, it didn't bother me the first 3 years, but now it's like this 4th year when we really need some serious action. I feel like the Twitter
He's dropped the ball.
It's just, he uses it to troll. He laughs. He makes statements and then says they're a joke. Or he'll make statements and then he'll be like, I got you guys to talk about it, didn't I? And to me, it's really manipulative and non-transparent the way he's handling stuff. It's shady, and he is definitely throwing gas on the fire of conspiracy theories out there, which, as a conspiracy theorist myself, it's ridiculous because we've lived through Planet X, Nibiru, chemtrails, flat Earth, aliens, UFOs. We've battled and forged through everything. Interdimensional beings. We've seen it all, Jake.
So let's talk about his tweets real quick, because to me, I don't care if he understands. That's more reason not to do it. In fact, someone that's not there telling him to stop it is an idiot. But let's go back to the June 20th rally in Tulsa. It was originally scheduled for June 19th. He played stupid and acted like he didn't know what June 19th was. And then he picks Tulsa, of all places. He picks Tulsa on June 19th. And we all know what happened in Tulsa in 1921. We also know what happened on June 19th. All right? Fast forward to the anniversary of the Parkland shooting at the Pulse shooting in Florida, the gay nightclub. What does he do on the anniversary of this horrific shooting and horrific event for the gay community? He takes away insurance to transgender people, basically that insurance won't cover their surgeries. So there's two things that he just happened to, I didn't know, coincidentally. And then when the riots and the protests started with George Floyd, he put out a tweet that said, when the looting starts, the shooting starts, which he was quoting a racist Miami police chief back in 1967. And then he goes, well, I didn't know. So when you say he doesn't understand, no, he knows what he's doing.
I don't know exactly.
He's provoking
but here's
people.
The thing. Objectively, maybe he didn't know. Maybe the liberal media is digging up shit that jives and
Did you know about June 19th?
I knew about June 19th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you know about the Pulse Shooting Club?
Thing, though. When I lived in this area, I didn't know about Juneteenth. When I lived in Buffalo, which I lived in Buffalo for
I get that.
over 12 years, more urban area, I came to learn what Juneteenth was about. It's way more mixed race everywhere in Buffalo. Here it's like White Bumpkinville in the mountains.
Another example. Trump has to one-up everything. He thinks he has to be bigger than that event. Point, Dr. Fauci throws out the first pitch at Nationals. What does Trump do?
He said he was going to pitch for the Yankees.
Not just that. He was going to throw out a pitch on the 15th, but Mariano Rivera is out there throwing a ball with him in the front lawn of the White House with a bunch of little leaguers. Trump has to one-up you. Well, he has to be better than the event that's already in place.
Everyone acknowledges this guy has some massive ego. And you're going to get that with him. I think that's why a lot of people voted for him for the show, the entertainment of it. Well, I mean, I voted for him. Here's what my position was when I first voted for him. I was like, Hillary over my dead body, and Trump. That will be entertaining. So here we are, Jake.
This is nothing. There's nothing entertaining. There's nothing entertaining about this.
It's sort of just, I'm awestruck by how split everything is, and I feel like we're at a point now, it's almost like seismic fractures. Like, I feel like the pressure is building and something is going to bust massively, like total social uprising. I feel like they want this civil war and reset, because how do you find a way out of the mess right now? Well,
if someone doesn't get in here and take control of this coronavirus, there's going to be a reset. That's for sure. Financially and everything.
I don't know what to believe anymore. I have observed both parties, and I get
they both suck.
The points of views. I can.
Let's go for a patriotic party.
It's tough because there isn't one well-rounded solution or answer, and I feel like both parties have gone to the extreme, and has caused a lot of animosity almost to the point where they want the American people separated and segregated and fighting with each other and arguing and unfriending each other because of difference of opinions. I mean, someone in the chat, I don't even know what I said or did, but while I was talking, they're like, okay, deuces, and just took off.
Yeah, because
What
we
did
believe
I
in the
say?
virus.
I'm trying to give my own opinion, and I'm trying really hard to be rational and balanced. And it's easier said than done because you really do have to rise above it. I have to observe the good things about Nancy Pelosi and Andrew Cuomo and all those people that me turning a conservative years ago, I've come to loathe them. Like I like looking at some of the things they're saying, I'm like, I sort of agree with her, and that makes me feel gross that I agree with her on anything.
Because the reality of the situation, and like I said, you go back to this article here, McConnell is signaling to Senate Republicans, if you have to distance yourself from this president, do so. In other words, they understand their president could lose this election. They cannot lose the Senate. And look, like I said, Mara and I both agree about this. We were big Trump fans up until COVID.
He needs to take this virus seriously.
The only reason why we don't, and the racist stuff too, that he started dropping the ball at that.
Well, I thought he was sort of insensitive with
not showing
all the,
any empathy.
Well, yeah, there needs to be a certain level of compassion and empathy. And when you're looking at that funeral for the congressman, you have all these presidents participating in it, and then you're wondering, I voted him in. Where is he, and why? Like, why is there that? I feel like he has sort of a hateful vibe to him, and
they didn't want him.
Then the crowds hate him as well. But
he's not.
At the same time,
he knows
you look at George Bush speaking, and back in the day, I wasn't the biggest George Bush fan, but you look at his personality and how he positioned himself bipartisan as a Republican with a racial issue. It was like I was looking at Bush being like, I wish we had that in the president.
Yep.
I wish we had these speaking characteristics in our president. I wish we had some kind of assurance from her. And I don't feel like he's being compassionate or empathetic enough to the American people to win the vote. He needs to sort of swallow his pride and just accept that the American people are going through some serious shit, and we need, a president not to be trolling on Twitter and social media. We need to be talking about these issues and helping our businesses, helping people who can't work anymore because there's not enough testing, there's not enough contact tracing. People want to feel safe. How can we do that?
It's time for less talk and more action.
We're the country to do it. We just have to do it. The world is looking at us for the right thing to do, I think. And now they're looking at us and it's like, Jesus, if they can't do it,
wait a minute.
What the hell are we going to do?
No, they're fine. They're fine.
True.
They're fine. Let me recap.
I don't know.
And this is the problem, Mari. We would be fine too
Here's the thing: the reporting is all over the place. Jake. This Sweden thing. 1 week, it's like they're doing terrible at this stuff in Sweden, and then this week, all of a sudden, Sweden's doing a brilliant job.
No.
You go look at news articles. Last week, Sweden was doing horrible. So what the hell is going on?
No, listen. It's plain and simple. Okay, we have a leader who has not taken this seriously. Okay? You look at the United States of America, 70,000 cases. Brazil, 52,000 cases. They have a clown running their country, too. India, 57,000 cases today. All I can say is India is a large population. There's a lot of flooding, a lot of people that are displaced. Virus is probably rampant just because of the natural disasters. But if you look at countries like Russia, who had strict lockdowns, you look at countries like Italy, who had strict lockdowns, Turkey, Germany, they're all France, they're all Canada, all of them had strict lockdowns for 6 to 10 weeks. And then when they returned to curbside business only, they were wearing masks. It was mandated. And even now, as these countries further their opening, they are still wearing masks. They're still trying to test. Now, the difference between the United States and the rest of the world is that we rushed opening.
What's Australia doing, by the way?
Australia is nothing to be concerned about yet. Their cases are up, but it's like we were talking about this the other day. You could say percentage-wise that they're up 80%, but that only means they had yesterday they added 602 cases. By the way, President Trump mentioned Australia and Japan as countries that were doing worse. Their cases were up. Japan yesterday had 700 cases. They are seeing a surge, 1,300. This is the beginning for Japan possibly. But when you look at overall numbers, Japan's got 34,000 total cases and 1,000 deaths. Japan was another country that was strict. Now, why is Japan having a problem? It's not because their methods are failing. They've eased the restrictions, Mari. They are allowing things to happen without masks, and virus has come back. So, like I said, and like you said from the beginning, this virus is not going away just yet. It's very, very strong and in place. We have to follow these medical guidelines until we get the ultimate. We can't cut corners. We wouldn't be in this mess if our president had a national mandate mask, if our president was strict about bars and restaurants and capacities and outdoor gatherings, if our president enforced these things for a short period, 6 to 8, 9 weeks. We did 45 days.
Well, here's the thing with the 45 days. I think that would have been successful if the states were actually acting united.
Right.
And the problem is
it was only 7 here, 7 there.
Act united,
no. And that's what I'm saying.
We saw it. We felt it. We were in New York. We saw everything sort of, contract first. And the rest of the country is like, what the hell are you talking about? There's nothing going on in my area. I don't see it. And we're sitting here in New York sort of like, wow, this is terrifying. And I was afraid to even leave the house. If I opened up the door, I was afraid to breathe, like getting groceries delivered, spraying them down with Lysol, not knowing how bad surface transfer.
Well, transmission's low right now. That's okay to ease back.
And
but me and you already agreed though. When we see it go up to 2 to 3%, that's when we're going to start our own.
Let's look at New York as an example. I am so thankful that I'm in New York. Even though it's a horrible state to live with red tape and regulations and that, but this state really followed the medical advice, and we were able to flatten the curve. And we have controls in place where I'm not as scared as I was when this all unfolded. We have county by county tracking. I can go online and look. I can see what the hospitalization rate is, the infection rate. I can see it's hardly anything in this area. I have that confidence. I can go out and do stuff without being as worried. But I wear my mask. And I know a lot of people don't believe in masks, but I wear my mask as a sign of showing I respect other people. And I respect that they might not feel comfortable not wearing their mask. And it makes me feel a little bit better wearing it, but I know it doesn't really protect me. I know it's protecting the old granny, like inner walker walking down the, aisle in Walmart. I look at her and be like, if someone coughed or sneezed, that mask would block something. And with this virus, it's all about viral load. And the less viral load floating as particulate matter in the air, the better for everyone.
Okay,
so,
I got to interrupt you here for a minute. The comment was that they've had mandated masks in California, New Mexico, and their numbers continue to surge.
I don't think people are complying, honestly.
Hold on. I'll give you the facts. New Mexico is adding 212 cases. California today reported 7,878. That's about 3,000 off of their what they were doing last week and the week before. They were around 10,000, 12,000 cases a day. This week, we are starting to see new cases in California decline. The mask mandate is beginning to work. Florida also doesn't have a mandate, but some of these mayors throughout the state are enforcing mask laws and are requiring their citizens to wear them, and their cases are starting to fall. Even though they don't have a state mandate, people are wearing the mask in Florida, and their cases are down about 3,000.
So the mask mandate in New York, how long has that been going on for?
Oh, geez. It feels like since, what, April?
It's
Since
been going on a
It's
while.
been since mid-April.
Now, people are looking at these places like New Mexico and California surging right now. It takes time
New Mexico's not
for
surging.
these numbers to actually show, too.
True.
Like, we're seeing the masks and the social distancing and all that in New York. We're in stage 4. We're pretty much open besides bars right now. There's all the retail stores are open. You can go in, walk around, buy stuff. All the restaurants are open. You can social distance in the restaurant or outside. Like, we have indoors and outdoors dining. People are doing it and complying, and it shows in the numbers. Like, if it wasn't working, New York would be back in the red. Like, really red.
So
We're orange right now.
I'll
We're
give you-
holding steady, but we're not spiking violently like we were.
So I want to say this here. Let's see. New York cases 443,000. Total cases of coronavirus in New York. I don't think that's herd immunity out of 19 million in the
No,
state.
it's more of a population density
Yeah.
really number that you're
There's
looking
no
at. It's
herd-
not.
Listen.
There's no herd immunity.
Okay, so let me tell you the next states to watch. States that are resurging right now that have already had a spike. Illinois is back up to 1,900 cases a day. During April and March, they peaked at 2,600 and plateaued around 1,000 or more. So Illinois is back at it again. North Carolina is back to 2,000 cases. Tennessee is a new one, 3,000 a day, and that number is going up. Ohio is holding steady at 1,500. They may be starting to plateau, and maybe their mask mandates might help. See, Governor DeWine did it differently in Ohio. Instead of just ordering the whole state, he only ordered like counties that were in trouble. And I'll tell you, Montgomery County was adding, at the time when they added the mask mandate, Montgomery County was adding around 80 to 100 cases a day. Today, Montgomery County they added 81 cases. So things have plateaued, they've leveled off, and I think it's because of the mask mandate. In my opinion, these states that are starting to wear the mask, we're starting to see the numbers level off or start to decline slowly. But the next few areas that we need to watch, Tennessee, Illinois, North Carolina, South Carolina, and, well, Kentucky.
Who would want to gamble with herd immunity with this disease?
No.
I mean, honestly, horrible idea. And I have seen no evidence that says that herd immunity is effective whatsoever. Really, truly, what's working is more testing and people social distancing. If you test positive, quarantine, catching
Listen.
these cases quickly and like slowing down the hospitalization rate. That's the key to your freedom.
No, you don't want this virus.
You
Plain
don't
and simple.
Want it. You don't want it.
You don't want
get it
this.
Passively, you don't want it.
The kids.
You don't know what it's going to do to you years down the road. You don't know what. There's neurological issues. There's cardiovascular issues.
And
there's
children, the
lung tissue
Kawasaki
scarring.
disease.
There's so many.
85 kids in New York City caught the Kawasaki because they had COVID. We don't know enough about what happens after the virus. So it's telling people that herd immunity is the only way to stop it. That may be true, but right now, from looking at the data, we don't see evidence of that.
Oh, I just feel like
There's too many unknowns.
it's a disease, and I look at it the same way as like if I'm walking in a field with a bunch of ticks, am I going to put the flea and tick spray on me, or am I going to go out and get bit and have bullseyes all over me and get Lyme disease? I think I'd rather put on the protection and spare myself
I mean,
And that's how I look at it.
Look.
It's a disease. You get it. Do you want to protect yourself or not? The fact is, the more people just acting smart, working diligently, we're going to be able to get back to schools and work, and everything's going to be normal. And it's going to be to the point where it's such a routine thing. The only way COVID's going to go away is that naturally people don't, the hospitalization rates are going away because the hospitals and the doctors in these facilities are catching it and cutting it off before it even becomes an issue. And it'll be similar to how Ebola is managed in this country. It's just takes more work to control it.
I just wonder if they say this coronavirus is dormant in your system, and you mentioned chickenpox earlier. If you get chickenpox, then you get most likely you get shingles when you get older. That's another dormant situation where that chickenpox, after you clear it up, that particular virus lies dormant in your system and then comes back tenfold when you're older, a month long. So the burning from the blisters of these shingles, it's incredible. So my fear is that if this is a dormant virus and it could resurge in certain, like people are still experiencing long-term symptom problems, like the stuffiness or the shortness of the breath or the cough comes back or the fever comes back for a little bit. What happens in 10 years from now? Do you get the COVID all over again and it comes back tenfold like shingles does to chickenpox?
That's what I'm worried about.
Yeah.
And I just feel like I'd rather be cautious, lay low, try to adapt, and just go into this situation knowing, hey, it's here, I'm here, neither of us are going anywhere. How are we going to live together? Let's set up systems in place so everyone can live with it. And it really has to be that way. It's not just going to instantly go away. It has to be managed. Like all other types of diseases and viruses and everything, it has to be managed. But to me, it's not going to be managed in the way like type A or B flu. It's more extreme than that. You're talking a disease. Type A and type B flu are not diseases. People need to understand that.
The bottom line is that all the work that we did for the 45 days that we had the stay-at-home orders has been wiped out because of opening too fast, people not wanting to wear their mask, people gathering at protests, people gathering at rallies. Herman Cain was last seen at Donald Trump's rally and was hospitalized 9 days later. And yesterday, Herman Cain died. And more than likely, he caught coronavirus at a Trump rally with people indoors, not social distancing, and not wearing masks.
Well, just the other day,
Why doesn't that wake up the president?
our senator, what senator was it? He got yelled at for not wearing his mask the day
Gomer.
after.
Senator Gomer.
Day after.
He gets
Tested
COVID.
positive. And who else was in that room with him?
Well, Attorney General Barr, you had other congressmen, Tom Collins. The fact is that these, and listen, God rest Herman Cain's soul, rest in peace, sir. But Herman Cain was one of those, I ain't wearing a mask, I'm going to rallies, we're going to win the election, go Trump, go, and this virus is a Democratic hoax. That was Herman Cain.
And that's the part
And it
that
killed him.
I have a problem with the Conservative Party right now being in denial. It's like a bad case of cognitive dissonance. And it's terrifying to me that we're in a position where we have to choose a party to decide our own health fate of the country.
It's insane.
It's a effing mess. That's what
It's
it
insane. It's insane. And, today I looked at you and I told you, I said, I just can't believe we live in a world that is functioning the way that it is functioning right now. It's so damn frustrating. But folks, listen, we didn't really mean to ramble on about COVID too much, but the politics side of things is this. There was an extension that was offered last night in a late meeting. It was not a real extension offer, guys. Even if they agreed on it, they wouldn't be able to vote until Tuesday. And then the Congress would have to approve it. And then the president signs it. And then the state has to readjust their systems we were still going to see unemployment payments late by 2 to 3 weeks. So don't fall for the narrative, especially when the president says that the Democrats don't care about the American people. They don't want them paid. Oh, yeah? Let me tell you what. The Democrats passed a bill in May 15th that was going to extend PUA employment benefits until January 2021. They were going to give out stimulus checks to families of 4 up to $6,000, and they wanted to pay frontline workers. That means Walmart, gas stations, nurses, doctors, everybody that worked on the front line, transportation. They wanted $25,000 bonuses, whether it was going to be a tax cut or a credit or just a lump sum payment. They were going to pay. That's why it was called the HEROES Act. And then on top of that, the Democrats had more than enough money to give to schools to adjust to these COVID regulations. They had money for high schools and elementaries and middle schools. They had money for colleges. I think $100 billion for the schools, K through 12, $30 billion for universities. Okay, they wanted to keep the PPP going. They wanted to make sure small business owners could get more loans to help get their companies back in shape again. The Democrats passed a bill that was going to cost the American taxpayers $3 trillion. That's expensive. But when the president tells you that the Democrats don't care about the Americans, and then the Republicans counteroffer, instead of $600 employments, it's $200 a week. Instead of $6,000 for the family on the check, it's $3,400. And what about paying the heroes the bonus money for working? They didn't have anything yet. So if you ask me, the Republicans don't care about the American workers, the unemployed, the sick, or the dead, if you ask me.
Well, I agree, because they're blanket saying everyone wants to sit on their ass and collect a free paycheck essentially. But look to like places like Nevada and other big tourist industries that are taking the biggest hit. It's like they don't have a choice. Where in Las Vegas are you going to be able to find a job right now? You're talking like tens of thousands of people in population. It's a huge hit.
And they're seeing a surge in cases.
And you might not see it in your town, but there are families suffering. There are families laying out in like car lines all day trying to get food. It's a tough scene for a lot of Americans in different places, whether you're seeing it or not. We have to be somewhat compassionate.
By the way, Nevada is open a little bit. Their cases are now going back up. They're over 1,000 a day with 29 dead today. Missouri, also another state that opened up early. They're now looking at 1,500 cases a day. Wisconsin, 832 a day. Mississippi, another one that was only like 100 or 200 a day. They're up to 1,100 a day now. Indiana, almost at 1,000. Alabama still going up with almost 2,000. South Carolina at 1,400. Michigan inching back up towards the 1,000 mark again. Tennessee is at their new highs, 3,000. Louisiana is having a second wave. Remember, when they were at 1,400 and 1,800 cases a day, they were considered the next hotspot. And right now, Louisiana is coming in at 1,799. Mari, the point is, I guess, is that COVID is not going anywhere anytime soon. Okay. And we have to address the needs of this country, or we are going to turn into a Venezuela.
I got to just say something here, too. When people are trying to, compare a country like Sweden, now don't take offense because I disagree, because I really just want to portray my point of view and have people understand where I'm coming from. But Sweden is such a small country compared to the United States. You're essentially comparing a plot of land that's equivalent to the size of California. Totally different scenario, totally different culture. We have Americans that are so opposed to lockdown measures they won't do it. You can't even, let's say, just to give you proof, the numbers with Sweden, the per capita death rate was 36 per 100,000, which is higher than the United States at 27 and neighboring Denmark at 9. So there's so many different variables, and it's a complex issue. You can't just be like reading a news article and being like, oh, Sweden's doing good, because then when you unveil the layers of the onion, there's still a turd in the middle, Jake.
So you mentioned Sweden and the population there, okay? Let's also discuss that Sweden is not. I don't think they're reporting everything, guys. Look at this chart here. Sweden deaths per day. They never really got over 100. But yeah, the population thing too is a big deal. Not a lot of information here but they don't have the amount recovered. Look, they got 80,000 cases. I wouldn't call that good. China had 86,000. Now, China probably more than likely hid their numbers. We've seen reports where 21 million cell phone customers have just dropped off of the face of the earth. I have a bad feeling that China probably had close to 30 million cases, 40 million, 50 million cases, and over 15 million people died. Maybe close to 100 million people had this. Honestly, I think all the videos that we're seeing from China, people being boarded up in their houses and things being set on fire, and videos of people that were on lockdowns, locked inside their houses, people were dead, children were dead. Remember all those scary videos?
And like looking at Sweden's stats, when you look at like your per capita area, Sweden has 51% more land per capita per 1,000 people than people in the United States. These states, yeah, there's a lot of Democratic states, but the Republican states are rising as well right now. You're going to know, if you look at the map that breaks it down by county, it's by population density. You have to recognize that as well. These people in New York City living in studio apartments, and they live in one room with a bathroom off to the side that's about the size of a closet, and their kitchen and their bed and everything is in one room. That's how a lot of people in New York City live, and they pay, $2,000 a month to live in a room with a bathroom. It's tight quarters, and people need to get out and get outside into the parks, and it was a huge struggle for the state to actually comply with this lockdown, and I just think we're short of a miracle that we got through it as well as we did without more riots and more protests that got even more violent. Like, I thought it was going to be true doom and gloom in New York City. I thought the city was going to just burn to the ground. Like, people are just going to go nuts being on lockdown. But it's shown that people have actually gone with it. And we did flatten the curve by just doing very basic things. And we've gone into all the way to stage 4, being able to have all our freedoms and go out, and schools are going to be opening in September, and we've done that by just doing these simple things like wearing a mask and being conscious of others out in public with social distancing. I don't think it's a lot to ask. That's all I got to say about it, Jake.
So,
hey, Jeff? I haven't seen Jeff in here in a
listen,
while.
Jeff had brought up a great point here. If you wore 3 masks a day, every citizen, that's 62 trillion masks in a year. And when you hear about, we were asking ourselves the other day, how is it that 3M showed a loss in the second quarter?
That baffles me.
And when President, so thank you, Jeff, for doing the math, because this really is a big deal to mention. Whenever you hear Trump bragging about 550 million masks being made over the next 90 days, think about, now, not every American is going to wear a mask.
Well,
so let's cut it. Let's just say it's 20 trillion and not 60. Let's say it's a trillion masks.
Well, you got Trump's
a trillion.
fancy
just one
gadget in Ohio, that sanitizer box.
My point I'm making is that 300 million sounds like a lot, but if you're using a trillion masks a year from the population, that alone, a trillion masks, 300 million's not even a fraction of a penny enough of masks. So That's mind blowing, and I wonder how true or how even accurate that statement is.
Well, here's another thing. Maybe 3M had too much competition and cut into their profits, and they weren't able to supply the demand. So, the profits you would have thought they had got deterred by supply and demand, like supply issues. They weren't able to crank out the amount of mass that you would think. So, the expected profits from them are less, and it got doled out to all these other people. I mean, look at even Teespring right now. We're going to be having masks on our Teespring store. What ShamWow makes freaking masks now?
Kodak,
like, oh my god.
Kodak makes the ingredients for generic prescription drugs now. Kodak. I mean, that's look, but that's good though. People are innovating during this lockdown, and good for Kodak. But one other thing I want to mention about Sweden before we move on, and we're not picking on you, Wendy, but Sweden, before coronavirus hit, was one of the top countries in the world with their economy. So they were already doing really good, and their economy was strong enough to absorb what coronavirus did to their country, which was not as bad. In my opinion, 80,000 cases in Sweden is still a lot, considering you've got China, which is 1.7 billion in population. They reported 86,000. Now, again, I'm not so sure I can believe that number from the Chinese, but it is the number that's reported, so that's what we have to go on. So, look, we could go on probably for hours.
How long have we been on for, Jake?
About an hour and a half.
Way too long. These people are bored to death.
Probably.
I'm so sorry.
So let's leave them with this. At a time like this, with the testifying in front of Congress with Attorney General Barr, Dr. Fauci, also there was testimony, well, that was just it, right? Just the Barr and the doctors. I feel like
the past 2 days.
There was I felt like there was another. I guess not.
Got all kinds of
but the point I'm trying to make is that we're being distracted from the fact that we are suffering a 32% drop in GDP. That hasn't happened since World War II.
I don't think people felt it yet.
No, it's
don't
coming. It's just
coming.
like how the new cases, the death lags, the carnage from a 32% drop is a lag, and it's coming. And people, maybe I'm wrong for saying this, get out of the stock market. Buy yourself a wall safe. Buy yourself a wall safe. Buy a bunch of gold. Keep some cash on hand. And get through the next 3 to 6 months. Because I'm telling you, I don't think it gets any better from here on out.
The next few years are going to be a rough ride. Do things like if you financed your cell phone, try to get it paid off with your stimulus check so your cell phone bill is less. Try to find ways to save your money and just hold on cautiously, because we're definitely in a rocky ride.
Save it.
Man, there is no right side right now to work with. It's very too complex for that, and I would just like to see people recognize that we're dealing with a problem and we have to come up with solutions.
I feel like
make people less fearful, whether they believe it or not. Like we have to focus on testing en masse and getting back to school and work.
I feel like that the stock market, I think America has been lucky to see it hold steady as it has. Don't flirt with this. The cases are tripled than what they were in March and April.
He's got to be one of my oldest subscribers.
Get silver. Yes, Jay here, Mackenzie, absolutely. Precious metals like gold and silver.
Steelers, Saints, Cardinals is in the house.
We're getting some old school. Jay here, Mackenzie. I haven't seen that one in a long time. Yeah. Good stuff there. Steelers, Saints, Cardinals, hello.
That's a different profile. Did
Oh,
you
he
change
might
your
have.
profile?
Yeah, because remember,
Did you lose your YouTube account?
well, he had to because he was a mod on this channel before.
Why aren't you a mod? Are you really you?
I had to make a new account.
Prove that you're
you.
Prove that you're you. How do I know it's you for real? Prove it. No. Okay. Do it offline
Steelers,
in
Saints,
the
Cardinals
comments.
could have been a troll the whole time, for all we know.
Yeah.
No, he's a good guy.
We'll hash it out.
He's
in
a
the
good guy.
comments. I'll shake him down in the comments. We'll
No.
figure it out if it's him. If it's really him, I'll give him his wrench back.
Yeah, right. But no, seriously, guys, the stock market is doing good now. But listen, the fact that the PUAs run out, that was the crutch for this economy. You watch the stock market next week, maybe not so much, but the following week and the week after that, if they don't have a deal done, especially in the middle of next week, we could see some historic drops in the market. Because, look, the jobs numbers for July come out next week. We're going to find out if we added jobs, which right now, I don't think we did.
Well, it's a psychological attack as well, not knowing. It sucks. It puts you in this sort of stressed out, anxious state of mind, trying to watch it, not knowing. And then last Monday, I was like, oh, we're getting to see what this bill's about. Let's go. And
No,
then the day after,
they've totally let the American people down, both sides.
No, it's like dragging feet central, and they've had enough time. They should have never dragged it out last minute like this. I'm disappointed in both sides, honestly. Shame on all of them. Really, that's my moral of the story tonight. They all suck. Jake doesn't approve of my latest bumper sticker that I got, but it says Giant Meteor 2020.
Yeah.
It's
all right.
End it already, it says, with a big giant meteor flying across of it. It just made me laugh being a space and weather geek to have a giant meteor run for president 2020. What else? We got locusts and floods and plague.
Yeah, on top of this, we got a grand solar minimum to get through.
Some more
So
logs out of the fire.
good stuff. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in tonight. Like I said, it's been a pleasure to talk to all of you and discuss what's on our minds. The most important things is, bottom line is, guys, both parties suck right now. A deal was not reached. Forget about unemployment, not just that, but everything else that was in that deal. The Republicans and Democrats have let the American people down all the way around. So it doesn't matter who you're voting for. And we love you no matter if you're a Trumper or if you're a Biden. We still love you. You have that right to have your opinions and your political beliefs. But, folks, we just need to understand something right now.
Murder hornets.
Yeah, the murder.
They were like giant ones, too. They're like this big, aren't they, Jake? We got to go on camera next time we do this, I think.
I guess so.
Just for fun.
All right, guys.
Okay, go.
Thank you very much for tuning in. We got to get off here. It's getting late. It's good to see everybody, though. It's midnight. We're getting old. We can't do these
What
late
the
night
hell,
talks
Jake?
anymore.
I had some caffeine today, so.
Right. All right,
Bye,
guys.
everybody.
We'll do another one of these very soon. There's a lot going on. I'm sure next week there's going to be a lot of news to catch up with as well. We have a hurricane coming, so we'll keep you guys posted, and we'll see what happens from there.
Jeff said a couple years ago with scary clowns in the bushes. Now look at it. We got everything now. Murder hornets.
That's right. Remember, they were stabbing
Locusts.
people. Frickin' clowns. And they're Fago. All right, guys. This has been Middleman Politics with Jake and Mari. You guys have a good night. Have a good weekend. Stay safe.
Bye.
Wash your damn hands.